she interviewed me. What's something you're most proud of? I'm 22. This is like the second interview I've ever been on, and I have all of my answers about what I can do on the job. But she said outside of work. And I'll never forget that question. And it's something I do ask candidates now. It just sort of reframed for me that this was a company who was looking to hire a human, not just an employee. And she really cared about me as a human and my whole life, not just my life that I show up to work at. It has reminded me throughout every interview, I'm hiring a human, I'm not hiring an employee.
Welcome to another episode of Higher Learning with me, your host, Oz Rashid. This is the show where we talk to executives and founders that are disrupting companies and industries about what they uniquely see when it comes to identifying top talent that others don't. If this is your first episode, welcome. We are so excited to have you. To our longtime listeners, thank you for your continued support. I hope everybody subscribes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts and rates us highly. Today, we are joined by a very special guest. Today, we are joined by Skyler Mattson. She is the Chief Executive Officer at Wongdoody. How you doing, Skyler?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Now, usually when I bring people onto the podcast, they're very jealous of my Florida weather here at this time of year in December. It's about 73 degrees from what I see, but you are in beautiful Los Angeles. What can you tell me temperature-wise there? Is it cold?
I think we're like 70, but the funny thing about LA is you get 4 seasons in one day.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, like 40 this morning, and now we're at 70, and then it's going to get cold again. So, sweaters in the morning, tank tops in the afternoon.
Yeah, so the variance in Florida weather, and everybody tuned in here for a weather podcast, so I'm here for I give the people what they want. In Florida, you're right. It's like a 10-degree variance, right? When you wake up, it's a little bit warm, and then it gets kind of warm around noon, and then it kind of calms down. But California, like at night, to your point, like it gets pretty chilly, really chilly, in fact. And so you got to be able to, if you're not out and you don't have a sweatshirt on, you could get caught and be cold all night if you're in the wrong place, right?
That's right. And we're babies, right? Like we step outside and it's 55 degrees and we're like, oh my God.
My blood is so thin. I'm telling people, oh my God, it's freezing. It's 58 degrees here. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's like 32 here. So I am grateful. You are grateful. We love our good weather. You are also CEO of Wongdoody, as I brought up earlier. What a segue. Can you tell us about the company? And I got to be honest, it's an interesting, unique name. So I'm interested, where does the name come from?
So Wongdoody was actually founded by Tracy Wong and Pat Doody. So it's like sort of law firm-like in its name origin. But when you put those two together, it's just so much fun. And it's always still a great icebreaker. I'm 21 years in of saying, hi, I'm from Wongdoody. And it still makes me smile. And I love sharing the origin story. We are a digital technology company. We started as an ad agency, but we've evolved with the times and we've infused digital and technology into everything we do. So we create amazing brand experiences. Those used to be in the form of a TV commercial, and now they're in the form of an app, for example.
I love that. So I want to dig in a little bit there before we get into the meat of the podcast. So when a company goes through a transformation like that, right, where they're headed in a different direction, they have a lot of success, but then like industries change, technology disrupts things, right? We'll use former South Florida business Blockbuster, right? As an example of had their business, were very strong, saw one on every corner, obviously no longer here, giving way to the likes of Netflix and things like that. But I'm always interested internally what that looks and feels like. So at Wongdoody at the time, did you have to start to see like decline or were you at the top of your game and the leadership was like, no, we've got to start to pivot and move in this direction? Kind of give us a little idea of what it was like internally as you started to make that kind of strategic change.
I mean, we all experienced it, right? You were suddenly going online for shopping where you had gone into brick and mortar, forever before. We were starting to get DVDs in the mail through Netflix, but there were digital components to how that was happening. I mean, there was definitely an overarching digital transformation happening in the marketplace that as consumers, we were all starting to experience. And the agency, while successful and while had experienced growth for 25 years before we were acquired, had kind of hit a plateau. And we knew that in order to future-proof the agency, to be able to continue to make great experiences, whether they were traditional or more digital in nature, we needed someone to help infuse capital and growth into the company. And so in 2018, we were acquired by Infosys, a huge Indian tech company based in Bangalore and many other areas around India. 19 billion, over 300,000 people, and at the time we were 300 people. But they came in and they helped really infuse this change and this growth. And yeah, it's wild. Even though it's happened over 6 years, it feels like it happened quickly, and it has been really challenging at times, but mostly exciting at times. And I'm really proud of the company we are today because we are in a situation where we can deliver experiences that people come to expect from the modern companies they work with, like a Netflix, as we talked about, like an Uber, really any company, a DoorDash, that's creating experiences based in technology that makes people's lives easier and more fun.
So I'm super familiar with Infosys. They have been great partners of our company as well. They are a humongous monolith, and they do a great job of understanding innovation and how to pivot. Were you in the role that you're in now during the acquisition, or were you in a different role?
At the time, I was president
Okay.
of North America. So it was mostly focused here in the US. Now, in my role as CEO, I oversee the company globally, which is 21 offices around the world. So it's been a bit of a stretch for myself as well as all of the employees. So I'm kind of like I'm here with you in all of this change and growth.
Yeah, so I mean, and we didn't talk about this, but I want to kind of dive in a little bit because I just think this is such an interesting thing when you get acquired. You obviously have new people coming in that are going to have a new say on things and a new kind of way forward. Like, what was it like that first like 6 months, year after the acquisition? Did you feel like you were performing or like showcasing yourself, or were you just naturally doing your work? Like, how did you handle that?
I mean, the first 6 months in the first year were actually part of the easy part because we had a bit of a runway to explain to all of the sales force of Infosys what makes Wongdoody special and what we do and how we can differentiate Infosys in these deals that they're going in, up against an Accenture who has Song, up against a Deloitte who had Heat at the time. So it was really fun. We were sort of on a road show of showcasing what we do and what we do best. I think the more challenging times came in years 2 and 3 when we had to roll up our sleeves and find a way to integrate our story and offering with the long-standing Infosys story and offering. And so that has become challenging. When you go in to pitch a new customer, you don't want it to feel like Infosys and Wongdoody. You want it to feel like it's one integrated offering. And that's been challenging to really figure out.
Love that. So listen, your experience is a little bit unique. You came into the company 22 years ago in an entry level role. And I'm pretty dang sure that most, like, whether it be Gen Z or millennials or whatever, when they take that first job, they're not thinking that they're going to be there for 22 years and get to be CEO. But some people, like, that might be their point. That might be what they want to do. So I'm just interested. You tell us about the rise, and was it like super intentional on your part in terms of like just continuing to kind of stack wins or get the right visibility or have the right relationships or perform and get these results? Like, I'm just interested, if you had to give people advice, if they wanted to do that, they wanted to stay somewhere at a very long time and rise up, what kind of advice would you give them?
It's a great question, and you should only do it if you're at a company as wonderful as Wongdoody. I mean, I really don't think many companies are worthy of this sort of like loyalty. Wongdoody, in terms of our culture and values, is very much has a family feel. We deeply care about the people that get the work done, and we start from there. We say relationships first. That's relationships with our clients who we care about deeply, and also relationships with our employees. I mean, without the team, we don't make things like what we do. I mean, we make things, but they're not widgets. Like all of our IP is in our employees. And so that relationship has been incredibly important. That's the reason I wanted to stay, because I felt like I had a lot of opportunity to stretch and grow. I felt like I had brilliant people around me who I was learning from every single day. And gosh, when I took the job at 22, no, I didn't come in thinking I'm going to be CEO one day. But I did come in because it was a smaller agency than the one I had been at for like a year and a half. And I heard that you can really roll your sleeves up and get involved. I wanted to be in new business pitches. I was really ambitious. And I went to my boss at the time, the CEO, Ben Wiener, who was my boss for 21 years until I took this position, and said, I want to go into a new business pitch. And he's basically like, what do you know about pitching new business? And I said, I don't know a lot, but I'll learn. And so I just kept asking for more, participating, learning a lot from the people around me, not being afraid to sort of jump in and try things I had never done before. I mean, I have felt a little bit out of my depth, a little bit nervous throughout my entire career because I'm always trying to do something I haven't done before.
I love that. Okay, so find a place that allows you to get your hands dirty and get involved with a lot of different things. Have a boss that's open minded and that's going to give you the opportunity to do those things, and make sure it's a place that's worth that investment in time and that has the right talent around you to ultimately be successful. So that's really good stuff. Hopefully, people
Yeah,
are.
sometimes I mean people do ask, if I'm in a situation where maybe as a woman I don't feel like I'm supported or I don't have an ally in my company, how can I create an environment where I can thrive? And I say most of the time you can't. But you're in charge of your career. And I made an intentional decision to stay because I was in a really good place. And I think you can also make an intentional decision to be in charge of your own career. And if you're in an environment that isn't supportive and isn't giving you what you need and what you deserve, you absolutely should look for somewhere else that will.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I also would say it's probably a testament, at least at some level, to resolve. I can't imagine during that 22 years that there wasn't days you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? Or maybe you didn't get the role you wanted at some point, or maybe there was a step back to take two forward. I have to imagine just that resolve and that persistence and that belief in that, it was going to ultimately end up okay, had to play a part at some point over the course of this time.
I
Fair?
mean, definitely. Many people find change very stressful. I get sort of like energized by it. Like I'm excited about what's coming next. And there has been a lot of that change. We have a value that we got when we acquired an agency in Germany called Oddity that is be like water, my friend. And I
Mm.
think that sort of be like water mentality of, really accepting the things that you can't change and sort of rolling with it has been really helpful for me throughout the career, especially with some of the changes that Infosys brought on, which have been really different.
Yeah, I mean, be like water. That's a Bruce Lee quote, I believe, if
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
And
I love it.
I tell the teams, yeah, our friends from Germany gave us this quote. And my Seattle office is like, no, Bruce Lee gave us that
Bruce Lee.
quote.
Bruce Lee gave us that quote. I love it. So when you started at the company, there were only a few offices, and then the company has grown to be truly a global entity. I'm really interested about when you open that first global office. What does it mean from a strategy and tactic perspective to grow globally? Like as you make the decision as a leadership team, what are the things you have to take into account? What does it mean for your business going forward? And then how do you kind of proof it so that you make sure that you're successful?
It's it's definitely challenging becoming a global org when, before it was LA and Seattle and I could pop up to Seattle and see the teams and know what was going on. And then, New York. And when we were acquired by Infosys, we immediately got an office in Bangalore, India. We've since expanded to the UK, to Germany, to Australia. But I think the India component, because it was the first and the largest, probably had the greatest effect on us and how we work. And gosh, it has been maybe the greatest gift that I was not expecting in this career to be acquired by an Indian company and to get to learn how it is to work with teams in India as a group, the most hardworking and passionate group of people who are just such a delight to partner with. And we have to find ways to make it feel like one company. When you have offices around the world, you sort of develop your own sort of regional culture, but you want to have this consistency in the way that we treat one another, the expectations that we have, the accountability we show one another. And I think we do a good job having our global town halls where we come together once a quarter and we're sharing work from around the world. We have a program called Wongdoody where you get a buddy in another country and you share the ways of working and the things that you're doing. Because ultimately, you want it to feel like one collaborative office, even though there are so many offices around the world. Another thing that's been really exciting about that is different capabilities and talent around the world. You can get in a mindset of, okay, we've got a new project and, we need somebody who's great at e-commerce and, who's available here in Los Angeles. But actually, no, it's who's available around the world. And with all of the digital tools we have in terms of working remote, we really can start with, okay, 2,000 employees around the world. Who is the best fit for this project? Who's going to bring the most to it? And that's really exciting. And I think helps differentiate us when we're competing with companies that don't have the global scale that we have.
Yeah, I love that. We are, I've said this before. We've made placements in over 43 countries. We have physical presence in Latin America. We have two big offices in India, including in Bangalore. And one thing I'm really excited about is the fact that when I've been to our India office, when I talk to our India team, we have done a really good job of having the culture be able to translate to different, not just different offices, but different countries and different locations. Now, to your point, there is some cultural nuance that happens region to region that's just unique to that country and that place. But overall, it feels like an MSH office. They have the same values we do here in the US. They pride themselves on a lot of the same things that we do here. And we do a Monday morning meeting, every meeting where it's global. We have everybody on. We're talking about everything. We're sharing information broadly and openly. We've brought people here. We've gone there, obviously. But I got to tell you, as much intention was put around that, we also got really lucky because in 2011, one of our first hires was somebody that was doing work for us in India that came to us and said, his name is Sayan. He said, hey, I'm really interested in trying to expand what we do in India and take it to another level, right? Whether it be sourcing, whether it be sales intelligence, whether it be, product development. And slowly but surely, he was somebody that we could trust. He understood what we were looking for in terms of culture and what was important to us in terms of the type of people that we wanted to hire. And piece by piece, person by person, we've got close to 180 people in these two offices at this point. And when you go there, you feel it, you sense it. It feels like MSH. It is not easy to do. And I'd love to tell you that it was all part of the roadmap and we knew exactly what we were doing. But gosh, we got lucky that we hired the right person very early on who knew what we wanted and needed and helped bring that to that different country.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a trickle effect. The more people that you add to the team who really believe in the value and the cultures, the more you can grow in that way. And also, we really think about how can we get each new person to add to the culture in different ways, right? We want these sort of underlying foundational values and behaviors that we agree to, but that doesn't mean we're like looking for trying to find all the same people with the same interests and the same personality. Like the more different we can find on those levels, because we're a creative company, the more exciting and vibrant our culture remains.
I love that. Really smart thing to say too, in terms of being additive to your culture with each hire rather than just trying to be homogenous, right? And that you're forced to do that when you're global and you have a truly global entity. So totally agree. Now we're gonna date it a little bit on the 22 years here, because you mentioned to me you came in and you were doing radio spots for the Dodgers early on. And as far as I remember, back then the Dodgers were just a nice, like, historic team, not like the Death Star that they are now, where they just sign every player. Are you a Dodger fan?
I am a Dodger fan. We're more of a Lakers family. We're more basketball players, but of course, you can't be in LA and not be a Dodger
Yeah,
fan.
so listen, I'm all Arizona. So Phoenix Suns can't stand the Lakers. Diamondbacks can't stand the Dodgers, especially since they just seem to sign every player and have unlimited money. It's almost unfair. But let's go back. So you did the radio spots for them early on, and now you're leading a company in the digital space, right? And we're in this age of AI. So I'm really interested to hear from your point of view. How do you feel like AI has impacted advertising already? And then do you have any type of vision of where this is going?
Super exciting, but let me back up for 5 seconds because I'm just thinking about this now. I'm 22 years old. I come to work at Wongdoody. Our clients are the Dodgers. And like day 2, my boss is like, oh, hey, we have to go present some work to the Dodgers. Let's get in the car. We drive to the stadium. We sit in the dugout. It's an empty stadium. The
That's
marketing team
amazing.
comes down.
Chavez Ravine. I
I
love that.
mean, too cool, too cool. But AI, even more exciting than sitting in a Dodgers dugout. And it's going to disrupt everything as we know it, but, honing in specifically on brand experiences, on marketing, on design. What's exciting about AI is really the sort of globalization it allows. We can now create content at scale. So rather than going into a 5-day really expensive photo shoot to try to capture every angle of a vehicle and get the models right and hope the weather all works. We're going to use AI to generate environments. We are going to use AI to create digital twins of a vehicle and put that in those environments. We are now going to use AI to create meta humans of all different nationalities so that we can run this content anywhere around the world and have it personalized to that region.
Mm.
And we're going to do this in a fraction of the time for a fraction of the cost. And it's ultimately going to create a better experience for the customer on the back end. So it's as scary as it can be and as disruptive as it can be to some areas of work. I think it's also incredibly exciting if you're in any sort of industry where you need to connect with customers, because now you can do it in a much more personalized way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I think everybody led with fear initially, and I think it's because the Terminator movies were kind of our thought process around, what AI was going to be. I believe deeply there are going to be outcomes that come from this, byproducts that come from AI that, are going to have some, deleterious effects. That's just going to happen with anything at the end of the day. But and ultimately there will be, the labor market is already starting to change, and the way that we work is already starting to change, right? But ultimately, I think this is going to your point, create more abundance than ever, right? It's going to democratize and customize things at a level that typically we didn't have the financial ability to do. We didn't have the time to do. It's going to take the people that understand how to leverage it and the companies that learn how to leverage it in the right way, and 10x, 50x, 100x what they can bring to the table. So for me, it's like I know it's going to be big in terms of the impact it's going to have, and I'm super focused on. I tend to be an optimist anyway. I'm super focused on the good ways that's going to be, and how my company and how our software company can leverage that and be out in front of it rather than be a dinosaur that ultimately gets extinct because we didn't think about it. Somebody said this. I heard this on a podcast earlier today, and it's not. I mean, here's the thing. We treat AI now like a feature. Like it's like, oh yeah, we're building this AI, we're doing that. AI is more like electricity than anything, okay? It's just going to be part of everything we do, right? You can't turn on your laptop without electricity. You can't use this camera without plugging in and having electricity, right? AI is going to be so native and intrinsic to all software we use, all ways that we interact, right? That it'll just become intrinsic, right, to everything we do in our lives. And so, who knows what that timeline is? I mean, some people have speculated it could be happening in 2 years. I think it's probably going to be a little bit of a longer timeline just because adoption, what you tend to see is adoption starts in startups, right? And then you see it start to grow into the bigger organizations. And then eventually then you have like, you have complete ubiquitousness in terms of being in the organizations. So I just think you have the right attitude about it. It's going to be so much better for your customers. It's going to be so much better for your employees. There are going to be byproducts that we have to manage against. But overall, if you're going into it with a pessimistic attitude, you're going to not be able to take advantage and leverage the great possibility and opportunity. The way I've compared it is I feel like it's almost like, the 1849, right? The gold rush. There's just so much opportunity. We're not 100% sure how it's going to work out. But since the advent of the internet, there's been nothing that was so, the possibilities seem limitless and so exciting. So I don't know if there's anything you'd have to add to that, but
I mean, there's so much. We could do a whole podcast on AI. I mean, you said, this sort of pessimistic outlook. There's this book I'm reading, The Coming Wave, which talks a lot about AI. And he introduces this topic of like pessimism aversion. Like as humans, we don't want to think about the worst case scenario, and we don't want to really look into some of the potential downfalls of a new technology or of a new situation. And with AI, we do need to lean into, okay, what could really go wrong here
for
so
sure.
that we are educated in terms of how we are bringing it in and how we are using it. But for me, I'm an optimist like you. I am seeing way more exciting opportunities than I am seeing things that I'm scared about.
Totally. With great power comes great responsibility. And this is definitely has the potential to be a very, very great power if it's not already. And so, yes, to your point, controls and governance and doing it the right way is important. I just hope that it's not overly regulated in a way where we can't take advantage of its absolute limitless potential, especially as a country, but just in general globally. I think it has a chance to do a lot of things and create abundance where there hasn't been abundance in the past. But like you said, you got to, with that level of power, you got to do it the right way. You got to have the right things in place. So let's hope that CEOs like yourself and myself, and whether it be public sector, private sector, we think through those things as much as possible and do what we can to have this be something that ultimately the upside is way, way higher than the downside. I mean, the internet is a similar type phenomenon, right? Everyone would tell you about social media can be really bad for you. And there's all these different things that have been byproduct, the dark web and all these different things. But overall, the internet has completely fundamentally changed our lives. We have access to information that we never would have had in the past. Overwhelmingly, nobody would go back in time and say, you know what, that whole internet thing, we really should have been more afraid of that. You just got to manage those downsides. So I think you and I are on the same page. And I love that.
Finding the right talent for your team doesn't have to be a struggle. Meet Aon Hire, the world's first hiring experience management platform designed to transform the way you hire. Powered by AI, Aon Hire takes the hassle out of every step in the process. From smart resume analysis to customized interview questions, it saves you time, money, and effort. Plus, with real-time insights from every interview, you can quickly identify top candidates, reduce turnover, and stay on budget. And forget about note-taking, Aon Hire takes care of that for you. Ready to revolutionize your hiring process? Visit aonhire.com and get started today.
Now, we got to talk a little hiring because that's what we do on this podcast. And you've grown a big organization. You've done a lot of hiring throughout your career. I'm sure you've been involved with hundreds, if not thousands of interviews. I'm interested, as you're looking at people that you want to bring into your organization or maybe report directly even into you, do you have a core hiring philosophy or something that you're looking for, right, when you bring on new talent?
I do, and it's taken me a while to land on it. Hiring's difficult. I don't know if I've always been good at it. I'm getting better with every hire. I think it's really hiring for a mindset over a skill set.
Okay.
Like, we are not so nuanced that we have to find this like very particular role who knows how to use like this one type of software or thing. Like, it's not that we're generalists, but there are generally a lot of candidates who have the same skill set. And I've found that when you listen for, try to seek out the mindset of someone, that's what's most helpful. Like, I want curious people. I want passionate people, people who can roll with change. It's that growth mindset, right? It's like feeling like you're always learning and you can adapt versus somebody who may be just, crushing it in their particular skill, but is maybe a little bit more rigid or a little bit change adverse, or is really confident that they have all the answers and there's really not much more to learn. You're really looking for those people that are lifelong learners and who are adaptable and willing to change.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And I want to point out something that you said that I think is really important is its high level of self-awareness. One of the funny thing about the space that I've dedicated my life to in hiring is that for the most part, when I talk to anybody that's been hired as a manager in any type of capacity and I ask them how they are at hiring, almost all of them are like, oh, I'm really great. Like, I got an eye for talent. I got the gut. I got it. Right. And the data just absolutely does not back that up. Right. If we went and listed up the last 10 people you hired and how we're defining success and what they're doing, it's hard. And like, if you don't go into it with that mindset of not in a oh my God, it's hard, I don't want to do it, it's a burden, more that, hey, this isn't an easy thing. And so for anything that I want to do well in, that's not exactly easy, I want to make sure I prepare. I want to make sure I reflect. I want to make sure I grow and I develop. And you said something very important there in that you're getting better at it with each hire. And that's exactly how it should work, right? You learn yourself, you learn your company, you learn what's important. You go through these failures and you go through these successes and you start to tie these things together. And one of the things that we're trying to do from a software perspective is, if I look at the two qualities, everybody I know that's really great at hiring, right? Some people that have built great teams, great organizations, whatever it may be, right? They do two things, right? There's typically two qualities. One is they spend a lot of time pre and post interview thinking about what is it I want to find out here? How do I create a great experience? And then after the fact, how do I reflect on so that I make a good decision? That is kind of few and far between, because if you think about it, as a manager, most of the time your job, you don't look at the hiring as that big of a core function that you're held accountable for, even though it's one of the most important things you do. You're literally running around from one project to this, to that. Oh, I got to do an interview. And then it's just like something that's on your calendar, right? So the people that can actually put the time before and after the fact to do it well usually tend to succeed. And then the other one is just like you talked about. They've usually been doing it for 15, 20 years, and they've made mistakes, and they've learned what works and what doesn't, and they learn from those mistakes and apply them going forward. And so my hope is to build, this is what we've done as a services company for a long time, but also is to build a certain level of a consistency and baseline of what great hiring looks like to help you get better outcomes. And if we can do that, that's worth billions of dollars at the end of the day. And we want to be able to kind of help that and prove that. So I love your self-awareness. I think that means that tells me right away that you know what you're talking about when it comes to talent hiring. So thank you for saying that. What about this? What about a memorable interview experience? Now, you've been at Wongdoody so long that maybe it's somebody you were interviewing, but do you have any memorable interview experiences when I ask you that? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, it's funny. The first time I interviewed at Wongdoody when I was 22, I was taking employee number 15. Like that was the position I was going into, assistant account executive.
Wow.
I know it's like you don't have to name names, but Vicky Palm, who's an employee at Wongdoody and a colleague and a friend, asked me. She interviewed me. What's something you're most proud of? I'm 22. This is like the second interview I've ever been on, and I have all of my answers about what I can do on the job. But she said outside of work. And I'll never forget that question. And it's something I do ask candidates now because it just sort of reframed for me that this was a company who was looking to hire a human, not just an employee. And she really cared about me as a human and my whole life, not just my life that I show up to work at, because we know everything influences what happens outside of work, influences how you show up at work. What happens at work influences how you show up at the end of the day back at home with your family. So I really loved that question. And it has reminded me throughout every interview, I'm hiring a human. I'm not hiring an employee. You know what I love asking? I love asking what's like something new you've learned recently. What's something new you've learned? And I don't even care what the answer is, as long as there's something and it makes the person answering really excited. Like, pickleball, it could be pickleball on and on and on. And I recently picked up tennis and I love talking about learning something new in your 40s and how humbling that is. It can be like, oh, I'm baking now and I've started baking all these things. Like I'm not looking for, I've trained myself in Java and I'm not really looking for a work-related answer, but I love seeing what people come up with. And the more unique and the more they just start nerding out on it, like if they just start going deep, I'm sold.
I love that. I asked that similar question and I reframe it a little bit. I will ask people a lot of the times, tell me something outside of the work life, right? That you're extremely passionate about, that you're close to a next level expert on, right? And then explain it to me as if somebody who had never heard of it before. And what I'm trying to do in that situation is one, determine what are their outside interests, right? Get to know them at a little bit more of a personal level. Make sure that they have that ignition switch where they can be passionate and you can see in their face how they get excited to talk about something, right? That others may not have as much depth and knowledge on. I think it's interesting to see what topic they choose and then can they simplify it and explain it in a way, right? That is going to be easily articulated and easily understood, because I think that is one of the key skills of, especially when you're bringing in somebody that is either going into a specialist role or you're bringing them in because they have some sort of outside expertise. A big part of that job is translating it into a way of people who are not at your level, right? Whether it be training, whether it be management, whether it be working with side to side with other stakeholders. I find that to be such a important and useful skill. And that will be usually a little bit of a distillation about their approach and how they're going to handle that.
I like that. I think I'm going to add that to mine because, a lot of the things we talk about is that we're storytellers and we have to get into a new business pitch and we have to tell a story, or we have to meet with a client and we have to convince them of something new. And we want to tell a story about that. And that's a hard skill to be able to tell a story in a way that's really engaging. And I like your add-on to that question. Now explain it to me, like as if I knew nothing about it. That's good.
Yeah. All right. Look at this.
Gosh, you must be a professional at this.
I can't wait to hear how it goes in that next interview. All right. Let's talk about when you've missed before, because that happens to all of us, right? And especially at your level and my level, when you miss on a role that's a direct report, right, it can be very, very tough. So obviously don't have to name names, but what I'm interested in knowing is when you've missed, can you look back on a theme or something that you would say, I wish I would have done this differently? Or do you have like your own bias that has come up that you have to kind of manage against yourself?
Yeah, I love people and I see the best in people and I can fall in love very easily. So, one, I know that my whole team has to interview somebody and they all have to be thumbs up because I generally like most people that I interview. I sometimes get caught up in charm and good storytelling and people who I think will be good giving presentations or meeting with clients. And sometimes there's not a lot of substance behind those answers. So realizing that somebody who's a really smooth talker and a really, confident storyteller, I need to find examples. I need to find real concrete examples behind the question and have them walk me through, okay, tell me about a time when this happened, or can I get a very specific project where this occurred and how you managed it? Because otherwise I get wrapped up in the style and I'm not really leaning into the substance. So I've worked hard to always incorporate, give me an example. And sometimes, can you give me another example so that I can really get the sense that this is someone who can roll up their sleeves and do the work. They're not just a manager. I mean, even at senior levels at Wongdoody, we all do the work. We're going to write the deck. We're going to go meet with the client. Nobody really just sits up here and is sort of like a puppeteer. So getting those concrete examples has been something that's helped me a lot.
That's fantastic. You're not the only person that suffers from that. I also have, we think about the road trip test or get a beer test. Like, who's somebody I like? Who's somebody that's enjoyable? And I went against my kind of thought process on that on a recent hire for a role that it was really important that this person had a unique and complementary skill set to myself and was going to challenge things and was going to make things tough and was obsessive about the work. So might not have been somebody that would be the first person at a cocktail party I would, pull up a chair with and talk for 2 hours. Not that I believe that you have to want to work with the person. It can't be somebody that's a complete wall, right? But that was one of the first times I can remember myself saying, okay, don't over-index into the personality that vibes with you the most. Over-index into the person that has the experience that you're going to need over the next year to 2 years. Look at somebody that's been that has been pulled into the roles that they've gotten, right? And then make sure it's somebody that aligns from a values and cultural perspective, not just, shoot the shit type situation. So I think I've suffered from that too. I've had to guard against that. And it's something that, you give great advice. And like, give me these concrete examples so I can understand, because I think that'll help you get to the nuts and bolts of it a lot of the time. What about?
I recently made a really important hire, a very senior hire, the most senior hire I've made since I've been CEO. And I had my executive coach interview the top 3 candidates because I felt like she really understood me and my style and some of my areas where I need to improve and grow. And she could very objectively give me input on a person who would be complementary, whom she thought we'd work well together and collaborate well, but who also brought new things to the table and new skills that I don't have. And I thought that was a really helpful outside perspective to get.
Wow. I love that on so many levels. And I'll tell you why. The first one is, tell me somebody that's going to more intimately know you and how you're wired and what you're about, right? So that's awesome because they're understanding it. They're literally going in there thinking, how is this person going to work with Skyler rather than what's it going to be like to work with me, things like that. The second thing is you're essentially getting a third party kind of objective, right? Not somebody that has an intent or an agenda other than truly helping you. And that's awesome. Did they pick the person that you thought they would, or did they go in a different direction?
They did.
Okay.
They did. And, I was really happy the candidates were cool with this. I said, hey, I kind of want to do something. I don't know if you've ever experienced it before. I hope you're comfortable with it. I want to explain why I want to introduce you to this person. And all 3 candidates were very comfortable with it. They learned more about me and even the role through this objective opinion. And, so far so good. The new candidate's 4 weeks in, but she's amazing so far.
Love that. What about if I ask you the best hire you've ever made? Does anybody come to mind? Again, you don't have to name names. We don't want to feel bad. But what I'm trying to understand is why were they such a great hire? And did you know that in the interview?
I think so. As CEO, most of the people who report to me are so senior. And I'm finding I'm really energized by a few of our mid-level team members whom I did interview. And in the interview, I thought, this could be the future of Wongdoody. A fresh perspective. It's a totally different interview when you're interviewing somebody who's been in the industry for 20 years than when you're interviewing somebody who's been in the industry for 5 years. I've been learning about this reverse mentorship where you get, younger, less experienced people to mentor you. And I'm all in about it. But there have been a few Wongdoody mid-level hires who I know in 10 years, 15 years will run this agency.
That's amazing. Love that. What an answer. All right. I want to take it in a little bit of a different direction before we get to our lightning round. I'm going to ask you, is there anything that you or the company's working on right now that you're really, really excited about? Just get you out of bed and you're ready to go every day because of it.
I mean, AI, everything. I mean, meta-humans. Like, I think that is so exciting. Our studio in Germany just did a study because they're trying to understand how customers feel about meta-humans in advertisements, right? Or in any sort of brand communication. It doesn't have to be an advertisement. It could be, on a website that you're shopping on. And what was interesting was they put up 3 humans. 1, okay, this is a human. We just went to a photo shoot and we took the picture. 2, here's like an AI generated human, absolutely gorgeous. And then 3, here's an AI generated human, but we've like re-put in the prompts that make them look more human. And of the 3 models, regular human, zits and all, AI beautiful human, and then AI normal human. AI normal human's the favorite. But people, they're like, okay, yes, like it feels realistic. I get that it's generated by AI, but there's something pleasant about viewing this person. It's very fascinating to me. I'm really excited about learning more about how customers feel about AI being a part of the content generation, what they're comfortable with, what they're not, what are the ethics in it, what are the things that need to be pointed out where you just need to be super transparent. This whole thing was generated via AI, or maybe all of that isn't important, but some components are. So that excites me, using AI to create brand experiences and understanding how far we can push it with the comfort of our customers.
Yeah, I think that's a really, the comfort of the customer is a really exciting one. One thing I'm adamantly against, and it's because what we've done with Aon Hire as a software is we are trying to empower the human experience, not replace it, which is what you see a lot of times in terms of automation and AI. And there's like a company that I see ads for all the time where they have AI avatars, right, interviewing people. And to me, I just think that's the antithesis of a great candidate experience. You want to know who you're going to work with, that personal relationship. Now, marketing and brand is very different. But I'm very much against, like, if you were an AI right now and we were just, our 2 AIs were talking to each other, like maybe we'd get as good a content. I don't know, but I don't think that's as important as building the rapport and building a connection. And that's what I find the interview process to be. And that's where I think a lot of technologists get it wrong. They're trying to solve a problem with what they know best, but ultimately they forget about what ultimately makes this such an important experience and why getting a new job is a big freaking deal. Why hiring that person that takes your team from an A to a B plus, or from a B plus to an A plus, like just changes the game. And so much like, and I've said this analogy before, much like I would, what I think AI's role in my space in particular is, much like I'd want to go to a world-class surgeon who's been doing it for 25 years, but they use AI to look at different case studies and things to make better decisions, or a lawyer that does the same thing, right? I want that mix of human experience, at least right now, and the ability to leverage AI in a way that makes you better at what you do. But marketing is a completely different ballgame because we already, I go into, even if I'm on my Netflix or whatever, or anything that has advertisement, right? It's going to come up and it's going to pop up and it's going to be unique to what I like. If I go on Instagram, my God, that is the most amazing company when it comes to targeted marketing. I can't tell you, I don't ever buy things off of ads, or at least I didn't think I did until Instagram. And then it's like, oh, well, kind of like those Nikes. I guess I got to get those right now, right? So I think there's a huge world and I think it's really exciting. But I also think that we have to be very smart about what is the world where AI can replace and automate, and what are the ones where we want to keep it somewhat people-centric and then just put data layers on top of that, or give them more information to make better decisions. You mentioned the book about AI a little bit earlier. Can you recommend a book for our listeners?
I mean, this is it. I have it sitting right here because it's really dense. You kind of have to, I'm not finished with it because I keep pausing and I go back. Sometimes I'm audio booking it. It's kind of like a sci-fi. I mean, it's creepy, but it's all about AI and what we can expect from it.
Love it. So what's it called? Just so our listeners, if they want to pick it up.
It's called The Wave, and it's by Mustafa Suleiman.
All right, we are going to move on to our speed round. It is going to be Los Angeles theme this time. Now, some may know this. Born and raised in Los Angeles County. I was born in Fox Hills Hospital, so place that's near and dear to my heart. Let's start here. Best food or restaurant in Los Angeles?
Oh my God. I mean, it's got to be tacos. It's got to be Mexican food. You go anywhere else in the country, like when New Yorkers are like, you want to go get a taco? It's like, oh my gosh, no. I'm going to go with Gilbert's, and it's on Pico Boulevard in LA. I mean, although there's like 10 different Mexican restaurants I love, but that's a family favorite.
Okay, love that. What about a tourist attraction that's quintessential LA? What would you send people to?
I mean, not Hollywood Boulevard. Let's just start there.
Not
I would send them to the Venice Boardwalk.
Venice Boardwalk? Okay.
There's shopping there. There's the ocean. It's a wild, eye-opening experience.
Love that. Favorite Laker of all time?
Oh, Kobe. R.I.P.
What about current Lakers? Who's your favorite?
I mean, Bronny.
I was gonna say, wow, you didn't go LeBron right off the top rope.
I mean, we love LeBron, but we got Bronny now. I mean,
okay, I'm here with you. I love it. And what is the best thing about living in Los Angeles?
73 degrees, baby, in December. I'm looking
right.
at my kids are going to jump in it on Christmas Day.
Love that. The thing I always think about is that I lived in obviously Southern California, and then I moved to Arizona. I live in Florida. You'd say that I'm addicted to the sun. I want to be somewhere where it's warm. But people are going to say, no, you have to have the seasons. I love that in the middle of December, I can wear flip-flops and shorts and go outside and play basketball or just run out there and not have to be cooped up in the house. I just love that it's beautiful weather all the time. Listen, Skyler, I really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to come out to LA. We'll get some tacos at Gilbert's. Maybe we can go get a French dip at the famous spot there. Stop at the Beverly Hills Hotel and get the French fries there. So much good food in LA. I really appreciate you taking a little time with me. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. It was a blast.
All right, Skyler. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.